Budweiser versus Narragansett. Budweiser-Busch being a product of Anheuser-Busch InBev and brewed at various breweries throughout the United States as well as overseas, with the Anheuser-Busch headquarters being in St. Louis. Both of these beers are rated at 5% ABV. Budweiser, I think, is rated 52, 54, 56, somewhere in the 50s on Beer Advocate, whereas Narragansett is rated in the 70s, maybe 77, I'm not sure. The community seems to think that Narragansett is a better beer. However, if you've seen my 7 lager rankings, which included both of these beers, Narragansett lost to Budweiser. In fact, Budweiser was ranked the best out of the 7 beers that I've tried. Now, they weren't really complete comparisons. They were multiple beers tasted at the same time. Budweiser won against 4 of the beers and lost against 2, the same as Miller Lite. However, Budweiser took the number 1 spot because when it went up against Miller Lite, it beat it. Miller High Life, I should say. Anyway, looking at these 2 beers, it appears that Narragansett might be a little bit darker. Carbonation appears to be about the same, although the Narragansett is retaining a bit more of a head on it. Even though I attempted to pour both of these beers very slowly as to not stir up any foam. And the aroma is about the same, very faint. Okay, to eliminate bias, I'll close my eyes. Now, unfortunately, the only 16-ounce glasses that I have are these wheat glasses, wheat beer glasses. I have some Pilsner glasses, and I have some mugs, but they are not large enough to hold 16 ounces. So I'll keep my eyes closed, and I hope that the foam of the Narragansett doesn't give it away. I should try to maybe stir up some more foam as I'm mixing these just a little bit to hopefully make them more evenly matched. Alright, that should be good enough. Yeah. I'll probably drink at least half of these beers before I make a decision. I don't want to be too hasty about it because when I did a comparison that involved these 2 beers, I didn't finish them all on camera, but off camera I did finish them. And I drank them much slower off camera. And by the time they just had a little bit of beer left in the glass, each of them, they were all warm and fairly flat. And Narragansett was the only one that was drinkable, the only one that had some flavor. All the rest tasted like water. A crisp, classic lager taste and feel. Decent amount of bite. A little bit of tang. Fairly sweet. Hardly any hop bitterness. Not bad when icy cold. Didn't have a sawdusty or a dry finish to it. Has a little bit more flavor. I'm guessing this is Narragansett because I think I felt foam on there, and I'm not sure I felt foam on this one. A bit stronger, There is a taste in there that I can't identify, a flavor that I picked up. Almost like a very faint cherry juice flavor. Kind of different. And if that's the Narragansett, maybe that's why the community likes it better, because it has that extra little bit of flavor in there. Or sometimes I've described the taste of some of these beers as being like cologne, having a kind of a cologne taste to it, whatever that is. But you can use your imagination, and that's what I imagine cologne, the kind of flavor it would have if you drink it. But I'm sure that if you really drank it, it would taste pretty bad. So cologne is not a good flavor. If I refer to a beer that has a cologne flavor, it's not a compliment. All right. But it could be a difference in the water that gives it that flavor. Water is something that I often neglect when comparing beers, but I think it can make a significant difference. It's the base. So a lot of European beers use spring water and water near where the beer is brewed, local ingredients. I think Czechvar uses local water, spring, and near its brewery, which is, I guess, why they brewed the beer there. I don't know. However, Budweiser should be consistent across all the breweries. It should taste the same. So I can't imagine them shipping water from one brewery to the other. I would imagine they use local water and treat it in a certain way so that it's consistent at every brewery. Probably filtered water, I don't know. I have no idea. And I would presume that Narragansett out of Rhode Island would brew with their local water as well. So you can have hard water, you can have soft water, water with various concentrations of minerals in it and other impurities, which can affect the taste. For instance, Mexico is known for not having good water to drink, at least the tap water. The water they brew in beer has probably been treated. I am leaning towards this one. And the reason is because already this one's starting to get weak, and in comparison to this, tasting watery. At the very beginning, I had a preference for this one. It had a nice flavor to it, a good tang, and it didn't have a flavor in it that this one has, which the flavor in this one is maybe not that great to me, but maybe it's something you got to acquire a taste for. However, this one is maintaining some flavor as this one is getting weaker and more watery. Yeah, yeah. I think that I will prefer this one. That is, if I had to drink. The problem when I keep my eyes closed is if the camera shuts off, I don't see it until I open my eyes, so I don't know how much I ramble on that gets cut off by the camera dying. But I was talking about water and how that might affect the taste. And between these two, I chose that if I had to say never drink one of these again for the rest of my life, it would probably be Budweiser. I'd probably prefer to drink this one. And the reason is because at first I preferred the Budweiser when it was nice, cold, crisp, right out of the can to this one. But this one is maintaining its flavor, whereas this one is tasting like nothing, like water. At least in comparison to this. So this one seems to have a more lasting flavor to it, whereas this one goes, I don't know, bad, flat, plain, much more quickly than the Narragansett. I'm not changing the rankings on my 7-beer American Lager. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. But now that we've done these two side by side, in a more in-depth comparison, I would definitely prefer the Narragansett. Well, maybe not definitely, but it seems to be edging the Budweiser out a little bit. Because, like I said, when you get down to this point, this one is losing its advantage. It doesn't have legs, whereas this one has a little bit longer legs. It goes a little bit further. So if you're out drinking, maybe with some friends talking, you're not going to be wolfing down beers like I am here. You're probably going to be drinking a lot more slowly, talking, eating, rinsing your food down with some beer. So it's going to last longer. And the longer that you have your beer out exposed to oxidation and stuff, and the carbonation, it changes. And the change is proportional to the degradation in flavor and drinkability. It gets more and more plain, loses its flavor, more flat, more watery, whereas this one, that change isn't as rapid as Budweiser. And that's all I got to say about that. Thanks for watching.